Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
Well, good evening, everybody. Hey, it's Cutler here in the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast and the Let's Talk to Cutler virtual book club, the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube channel. And I am here to spend these next 1,800 seconds with you all. And I want to thank you for spending these 1,800 seconds with me. Thank you for inviting me into whatever space you've allowed me to come. I appreciate it so much. And I don't take for granted this time that we spend together in this live format on these Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm so very thankful because these conversations really are about inspiration. They're about motivation. They're about challenging us to show up our best selves, even in the worst of situations. And life has a way of tossing a few of those worst case scenarios at you. And you think, all right, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to deal with this one? How am I going to face this? How am I going to respond to this particular circumstance or scenario? And I don't know about you all, but for me, I often reflect on our conversations that I have here. And I realize it is true. I want to make sure I've shown up better today than I did yesterday. I want to make sure that I'm intentional about striving to show up better tomorrow than I did today. And I want to make sure that in whatever situations that I show up my best self. So I am so very thankful that we get a chance to have these live conversations because we must sometimes challenge ourselves. We become better when we challenge ourselves to become better. We don't become better just by sitting around and hoping that through osmosis, I'm just going to improve, I'm going to become better, because it's not that way. It really is about being deliberate and about being intentional regarding how you show up and how you are viewed and how you be and how you articulate, how you say things, how you interact with people, what kind of impact you have on people. It is about our intentionality. I think that is the buzzword of the day. It is about our intentionality because some people are intentionally reckless. Some people are intentionally offensive. Some people are intentionally negative, but that is not our goal. Our goal is to be intentional about being our best selves, even in the worst of situations. So thank you all. Thank you so much for sharpening me. You know, there's a passage that says iron sharpens iron. So thank you all for sharpening me and reminding me, yeah, Cutler, when you're out in the world and when you're in the marketplace and when you're in these different settings and venues, don't forget the things that you've talked to us about. Don't forget that it really is important to show up your best self because your best self, because you are representing your character. You are representing your integrity, because people don't necessarily you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. That's where I'm going. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So let me just say thank you for to those of you who have been with me for a while, and even to the new people who are stopping by. If this is your first time, do me a favor. If you're just catching the replay or just joining live, go ahead and subscribe. After you subscribe, there's a notification bell down there somewhere, or up there somewhere, over there, over there. Go ahead and click on the notification bell. It lets you know whenever I've gone live and whenever I've uploaded new content. I'm going to shout out. Come on in the chat. I see you all. I see you logging in. Come on in the chat and say hi or something so that I can see you, because I want to see my friends. I have to try to remember where that comes from. But I really appreciate this time that we spend together. And let me just do a shout out to the LTTC VIPs for just a moment, the Let's Talk Cutler VIPs. Those are the people who make it into the chat room sometimes before I do. There are a couple of you who made it into the chat room just as I was logging in. I said, oh my goodness, they're already there. So shout out goes to Annie Cutler, to Tracy Johnson, and to Marissa. And let's see, we're coming up on a long weekend. Well, for me, it'll be a long weekend. And I do want to give a shout out, of course, to the veterans, people who really sacrificed their life. They made the choice to defend our country on foreign and domestic ground. So a shout out to veterans. Happy Veterans Day. If you know veterans, make sure that you express your gratitude and appreciation for their service. It's not to be taken granted. I know there's some people who said, well, they that's what they opted to do, just like some people opted to go to college. Yeah, but going to college was not me opting to put my life potentially in harm's way. It was not me opting to put my life in jeopardy. So I owe a gratitude. I owe a tremendous gratitude to the veterans. So again, make sure that you give them a shout out tomorrow as we observe Veterans Day. Today, I want to talk about how to have difficult conversations. Yes, I do. I want to talk. I want to talk about how to have difficult conversations. And Cutler, how is it that topic can be inspirational, motivational? It may be more challenging than anything, but I hope some motivation comes out of it, because I am thoroughly convinced that there are some conversations that must be had. We've talked over the past few weeks about, how to maintain your joy and how to keep your peace, and how to, and when sometimes it's time to call the relationship over, and to walk away from certain relationships and certain friends and what have you. We talked about how to handle fools, all those sorts of things. We've been having a lot of conversations. And if the truth be told, you all, I'm not a proponent for just cutting people off. I'm not a proponent for just not giving a relationship another try. That is not me at all. I am such a people person, and I am inclined to say, you know what, just keep trying, do what you do what you can. But sometimes, uh, as you're handling people who have foolish traits and foolish characteristics, on one hand, you just want to walk away, but sometimes before you walk away, before you call it quits, you want to have a conversation. And I know I'm not the only one. Sometimes before you call it quits, you just want to have a conversation, and you want to say, I want to see how this is going to go. I was reading something, and that's what I'm looking for. I was reading something earlier today, and it said dodging difficult conversations for short-term comfort can lead to long-term dysfunction. So whenever we're dodging these difficult conversations just for our short-term comfort, really what it leads to is just dysfunctionality. We keep sweeping things under a rug, and the more we sweep things under a rug, we create this big mound where people can stumble and trip and fall, and break an arm or something. But we have to be concerned and be honest with ourselves that there's some difficult conversation that just must be had. I think about sometimes when people they say things and they just make you feel bad, and they'll say it tongue in cheek, and they just keep on going as if they did nothing wrong. Sometimes romantic relationships need to come to an end. Sometimes there are family members whose values are different from yours, and we have to think about these things. These make for difficult conversations, and you can't always avoid them. They make us nervous. They make us sweat. They give us anxiety. They give us all sorts of upset stomach, and everything else. They stress us out. But some conversations must be had. Tell me, how good are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How good are you at handling difficult conversations? I'm curious, where 1 is not so good at all, and 10 is extremely amazing. How good are you at having difficult conversations? Because the thing is, avoiding these difficult conversations really doesn't help. I often say that what you've got to do is to tackle the issue head on, and it can help the other person better understand your position, better understand your perspective, better understand how you feel, better understand your beliefs, and it can really improve your relationship. You can't always turn and run from these difficult conversations. A lot of times we struggle with these difficult conversations. Why? Because we are afraid of there's something that's called fear. It is the fear factor. We fear the worst. Don't want to have this difficult conversation because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. We fear the worst. I was just having a conversation with a relative today. I said, you know what? Plan for the worst, but hope for the best. Plan for the worst, but hope for the best. When it comes to these difficult conversations, a lot of times we avoid them because we fear that the worst can happen. Okay, so plan for the worst. When you go into this conversation, just plan for the worst. But hope that by having the conversation, the best is going to come out of it. And then there is no room for disappointment. I've planned for the worst. My BATNA, my best alternative to a negotiated agreement. My BATNA, I'm planning for the worst. So that way, if I've planned for the worst, then if anything better than that happens, then it's a win-win situation. It really is. These difficult conversations, let me see what you all are saying in the chat, because difficult conversations, they make us nervous. They give us all kinds of energy. I mean, all kinds of anxiety. All right. And I'm curious, how many of us are challenged at having these difficult conversations that really deal with, you want clarity about what happened, particularly when what happened can be a traumatic situation, or can be a situation that it was just an ugly situation. A lot of times there are difficult conversations about what happened. There are also difficult conversations sometimes about feelings and emotions, about how I felt, how you made me feel, how I thought I made you feel, or how I didn't make you feel. Those kinds of things. Those are difficult conversations. And if you want to know some of the things that I recommend, I'll share those with you. I want to see what you all are saying. Difficult conversations, we've got to have them. Couple of tips. One of the things that we need to do, you all, when we go into these conversations, we need to listen. We really do need to listen. And maybe these are helpful hints that you can share with people. Maybe you're saying, well, Cutler, this is not me, but how do I tell people about having difficult conversations? Tell them one of the things that they need to do, or they need to encourage people with whom they're going to have these conversations. Somebody needs to listen. Because when the other person is speaking, when the other person is talking, we don't need to spend our time thinking about what we're going to say next. And that happens in normal conversation many, many times. When people are talking, we are spending time thinking about what we're going to say next. But that's not listening. In a difficult conversation, active listening requires that you really listen to what they are saying. Try to understand their point of view. And if you're not sure what their point of view is, then you need to open your mouth and ask questions, or say things like, hey, can you tell me more about that? If you're trying to understand how they feel based about a particular situation or circumstance, you need to say to them, well, how does that make you feel? That is the conversation. So listen as they're speaking, and then say, can you tell me more? Can you tell me how that makes you feel? Don't overtalk them, but listen to them. And that's a hint for just normal conversations, you all. As we are listening, we need to make sure that we're not trying to frame or formulate a response when we haven't even heard the entire side of what they have to say. When people are talking, you might just learn something about them that you didn't necessarily know. You may even get to see the situation from a different perspective, or through a different lens, or from a different angle. Because if they see that you are engaged, then the more likely they are to do the same when you speak. If they see that you are listening, the greater likelihood that they're going to listen to you when you're speaking. So I encourage us. Listen, and then ask them, how does it make you feel? Or can you tell me more about that? But for goodness sake, and for the sake of relationship, don't overtalk them. And you want to be clear about how you feel. You want to be clear about what you want to get out of this conversation. Have you ever seen people who go into a conversation, and after you leave the conversation, and maybe you've done this, you say, did I really tell them how I felt? Did I really tell them what I want? Did we really talk about each other's expectations? Because being a part of a difficult conversation, if you're going to do it accurately, if you're going to do it successfully, a part of being involved in this difficult conversation is communicating clearly, communicating succinctly, communicating directly. You want to give some thought about what you're going to say. You don't want to just speak and have your nerves and your emotions to take over. You don't want them to get the better of you. You want to be clear about what you're going to say. So give some thought to it. If you want to talk about what happened or a particular situation, make sure that you have your facts straight. Make sure that you're clear about what happened. One of the things I often say to people, you're clear and concise. One of the things that I often say to people is, listen, when you start explaining how you feel and how you think, people cannot deny how you feel and how you think. I've said this before. If you're going to have difficult conversations, or just in general, but specifically this evening, if you're going to have difficult conversations, use I statements. Start what you have to say with I. I feel. I believe. Don't just say things that begin with the word you, because when you start saying things that begin with you, it sounds so accusatory. It sounds so on the attack. And we need to think about it. We need to think about those kinds of things. You want to be clear about how you feel. You want to be clear about what you're going to say. I'll confess, I'm so guilty of having gone into conversations and then just allowed my emotions and my nerves to speak. And then I realized at the end of the conversation, Cutler, you didn't even say everything that you wanted to say. You didn't say everything you needed to say. You didn't say everything that was good for building the relationship. So if you're going to be clear about how you feel, if you're going to be clear about what you want, you need to say that exactly at the beginning of the discussion. This is how I feel. This is what I want. And a lot of times what we want is to be heard. Sometimes what we want is an apology. And let me just say this, you all, don't go into a conversation expecting somebody to apologize without letting them know that's what you're hoping for. It's okay to say, I felt so and so and so, and I felt like so and so and so. And I'm hoping, maybe in this conversation, I'm hoping that I can get an apology. It's okay to be clear about what you want, because you go through this conversation, and sometimes you go through these conversations and you're not clear about what you want. And if you're not clear about what you want, how can the other person be clear about what you want? They can't manage expectations that they don't know. But they get the option to see what it is you want and where you're trying to go and what you need from this conversation. I feel really sad when you do so and so and so. I felt really upset. I felt really annoyed. I felt really bothered. I felt disappointed. I felt hurt. Say how you felt. Say what you're looking for. It is okay. It is okay to say what you are looking for. And then, as you're having this difficult conversation, here's something that challenges us. And this is a part of our challenge this evening. I said our conversations are sometimes motivational, sometimes they're inspirational, and quite often they're challenging. Here's a challenge for us. One of the things that you want to do if you're going to have a difficult conversation, for goodness sake and for the sake of relationship, you want to look at the issue from their perspective. We don't always do that. That doesn't mean that they're right and you're wrong. That means that you're just global and you're objective. Look at the issue from their perspective, because it can be easy to get caught up in how you feel, particularly if you're hurt or if you're disappointed or if you're sad or if you're feeling anxious about something, if something has just made you feel strange or awkward. Before you jump to any kind of conclusion, make sure that you try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try to see the situation from their perspective, from their vantage point, from their lens, from their angle. That's what you want to do. Look at the issue from their perspective. Sometimes you may want to reframe the issue and say, now, did I get that right? Am I looking at this the right way? Because people will say things for a lot of reasons. They'll say things for a lot of reasons. And one of the things that you want to try to do is to understand their perspective. And I'm going to offer this to us as well, you all. I'm going to share this with us because I believe, that was just me unplugging my phone. I believe that sometimes when we're in the midst of these difficult conversations, sometimes they can become awkward. Sometimes they can become emotional. And I will say this, you all, if things are not going as planned, if things have taken a turn, then for goodness sake, take a break. Because sometimes you can do all the preparation that you want. You can prepare, you can plan so that you're going to have a constructive conversation. You can do all of that, but if the other person is not willing to do the same thing, it can feel like you're going nowhere. You end up in the midst of this conversation and you really aren't going anywhere. So I say, if things are not going like you planned them, if they're not going as planned, just feel free to take a break. Just feel free to take a break, because you've engaged in this conversation and you're not always able to control how other people are going to feel and how they're going to respond. And from time to time, when you're in the throes of these difficult conversations, things get a little heated, things go to the left, things go haywire, and what you need to do is take a break. Give me a minute to think about this, if you don't mind. Well, let me just go and get my head together. Let me see what I can do to just wrap my head around that. That's a bitter pill to swallow right now. Just give me some time to try and digest that. Go and take a break. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You're going and taking a break. And sometimes, I think you all know this just as much, if not better than I. Some of you have said it before. When you're having these difficult conversations, sometimes you have to do what? Agree to disagree. Because not all conversations are going to have a happy end. They're not going to have a peaceful resolution. Some conversations are going to end with you upset with the other person, the person upset with you. Some conversations are going to end where you felt like there was no progress. That's what's going to happen. And I need to say this to us. You can agree to disagree. You can just agree to disagree. Because some people you just can't talk through. Some situations you just can't talk through. Some circumstances, some behaviors you just can't talk through. And you have to say, you know what, that's okay. They are not going to change in this situation. There's some situations where I'm not going to change in. So we'll just agree to disagree. Take it for what it's worth and keep right on going. And while you're taking it for what it's worth and you're keeping on going, make sure that you look after yourself. Because sometimes these conversations get a bit heated and you become emotional. Sometimes they get heated and you walk away hurt. You walk away angry. You walk away confused. Make sure that you take care of yourself, and you make sure that taking care of yourself becomes a priority when it comes to these difficult conversations, because they will drain you. They'll pull from you. They'll suck the energy out of you. They'll drain you. And you walk away feeling exhausted and anxious. Sometimes there's this concept, we didn't have it when I was growing up because I grew up in a different generation, but this whole notion of time out. It's okay to take a time out so that people can cool down, so that you can come back to the conversation and cool heads will have emerged. This whole concept of where you're looking after yourself and where you're cooling down, use this time to just relax. Go for a walk, listen to a podcast, listen to music, do something, meditate, pray, do something. Talk to one of your mentors, but look after yourself. And I want to say this to you. Difficult conversations are called difficult for a reason, because they are. And sometimes we enter these conversations with sweaty palms and trembling voice, and our knees are quivering. We enter these difficult conversations because we never know what the outcome is going to be. But you ought to be so proud of yourself for at least starting these difficult conversations. I'm saying this to you. Don't let these next weeks go and these months go, and there are some things that you need to get off your chest, some things that should be said. I'm telling you. Have some of these difficult conversations. But nowhere in this conversation, in our dialogue this evening, did I say that you have to be boisterous, that you had to be rude, that you had to be nasty, that you had to be curt, that you had to be crass. I didn't say any of that. What I'm saying is that you could still have a difficult conversation and there'll be a positive outcome. The positive outcome could simply be that we agree to disagree. The positive outcome could be, you know what? I'm going to look after myself because this has drained all of my energy. So be proud of yourself. Be proud of yourself for starting these conversations. And speaking of starting conversations, sometimes you're probably wondering, well, Cutler, how in the world do I start these conversations? Because I think this is probably easier said than done, and it very well could be. It very well could be. But in terms of beginning some of these conversations, you just simply say to somebody, hey, I have something I'd like to discuss with you. And whatever it is, I think this will help us to work together better, more efficiently. We'll be more productive. You don't want to put people on guard, on the defense immediately. Hey, I have something I'd like to discuss with you. Or you can simply say, I'd like to talk about fill in the blank. I'd like to talk about this with you. Because I want to get your point of view. I want to get your perspective. If it's an incident, an issue, hey, I need your help with what just happened. Do you have a minute to talk with me? You can do that. I need your help with something. Can we chat soon? Can we talk soon? And if that person says, yeah, let me get back with you, let me follow up, make sure you follow up, you all. You can be a little more pointed as you're going to start the conversation. Hey, you know what? I think we have different perspectives on such and such and such. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you're thinking on this. That's a great way to start the conversation. None of these conversation starters are offensive. None of them. You know what? I'd like to see if we can get a better understanding on this topic. And you say what the topic is. I'd like to talk to you about something that I've noticed over the past few days. I'd like to talk to you about something. These are just ways to begin. Let me put my glasses on and just scan the chat really, really quickly before we get out of here. These are just ways to begin a difficult conversation because we have to have them, you all. We have to have them. Oh, virtual coffee chats. Oh, virtual coffee and chats with my team members. I'm telling you, where there's a will, there's a way. I'm just encouraging us this evening, you all, for the sake of relationships. I'm just encouraging us, and for the sake of peace of mind, I'm just encouraging us to tackle those difficult conversations. Don't put them on the back burner, because if you put them on the back burner, then you're going to end up dealing with dysfunctionality. I'm not going to deal with them because I'm comfortable with where I am and because I'm comfortable where I am. I'm not going to deal with the difficult conversations. But guess what? The difficult conversations are on the back burner, still brewing. They are. So I'm encouraging us Stand up, be counted for, have the difficult conversations. I've given you a few pointers. If you know people who need to have these pointers, please tell them to come on and watch this broadcast, or send them the link so they can catch up. But my heart tonight is making sure that we do what we can to salvage relationships, to do what we can to understand each other, to do what we can to live peacefully with people. All right. Thank you all so much for doing what you do. I appreciate this so very much. Thank you for allowing me to come to your home and to your space. Let's keep doing what we do, you all. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Let's keep our heads up and our hopes up. Let's stay safe. Let's stay sane. And know, honestly, from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. Go and tell somebody until the next time we get together. Tell them, come on and let's talk to Cutler. The man was telling us tonight about how to have these difficult conversations. So just give them a tidbit, y'all. Just give them a little bit, a snippet about how to have a difficult conversation, and then send them over to my link so they'll catch the rest. Thanks a lot. I'll see you the next time I see you. Don't forget to tell all the veterans Happy Veterans Day. I'll see you. Good night.